All right, welcome to another podcast from the Georgia Track and Field and Cross Country Coaching Collective. I'm Andy Chrisley from Mill Creek High School, joined as always by Chris Mayer of Athens Academy. Before we dive into this week's topic, we want you to find us on the internet. You can find us on our website, georgiatfxccollective.com. Find us on Instagram, on Twitter, X, all those things. But feel free to reach out to us. Our emails are on the website, and we're open to feedback. And if there's any way you'd like to contribute, I will turn it over to Coach Mayer to introduce today's topic.
Yeah, thanks. We're looking forward to the upcoming cross country season, so we want to put out a couple of these that maybe focus on some cross country type of topics. And this one, we're going to talk about the importance of being patient in August. And it's not to downplay the importance of August, maybe actually to emphasize the importance of August and reframe it for some folks. To me, doing this for 14 years now. And Coach, what year are you going into?
26.
I've definitely approached August from a lot of different angles and learned from a lot of maybe things that maybe I made mistakes on, or just understanding more that more and more that August doesn't have to be this super star of a month in terms of like fitness games and all that. But in Georgia, in the Southeast, and I think it's not totally common to be racing by August 10th and throughout the country. And our cross country season can get off to a really fast start here. And maybe you're coming off of a really big summer, maybe you're coming off of a not so great summer. But I think it's easy to get caught up in how quick our season gets started. So I kind of want to just, Coach, kind of go back and forth and talk about what are some of the things that maybe are important to us in August. What are some things that maybe you've learned you can, I don't want to say let slide, but maybe relax on a little bit, be patient about. So I guess I'll start by just saying, like, for me, I think the race results, we're going to be racing pretty quickly. There are some teams out there, I think, who have come up with a formula where maybe they're not racing for the first time until Labor Day weekend. And maybe even they take a week or two off after that. You don't see them again until the middle or late September. But I think there's a lot of teams also that are going to be racing the first 3 or 4 opening weekends of August. And so to me, I think if you're going to be racing, just use it as part of training, not looking for any really big results. I think there's going to be some guys and girls out there that hit this huge first race of the season, and that's awesome. But things are going to look a lot different, or can look a lot different in November. Training wise, I think overemphasizing some things in training in August, just I think mainly with our weather and the stress of school starting, among other things. I just think that I think the overall message that I want to convey is just like, when it comes to race results, when it comes to the big workouts or workout results, you can maybe kind of relax a little bit on, and just kind of believe in the process and putting in the work, and that every day is not going to be huge and really great. And I think that's okay. I tell my athletes, make a B+, sort of this time of year.
Yeah, so several things that you brought up that I can touch on. Number one, I guess maybe is, when is the first race going to be in August, and how you're going to treat it. And, I know a lot of teams have a time trial, maybe around the first of the month, maybe a week or two into the month. It just depends on when that first race is going to be. But that's one thing that coaches can do, to gauge fitness before you get into the workouts of August. The heat makes things a little tricky. And especially last year, where the first time that I could remember, we had some practices that had to be canceled in the afternoon because of the heat. And I know we at Mill Creek and I know other schools went to morning practices. And in Gwinnett, it's a little hard because our start time is 7:20 or around there for most schools, for high schools. So you're talking about having to start around 5:15. So we made it optional. Couldn't make it mandatory, but we made it optional, and had a good turnout. But then some school systems, I know Cobb starts a little later, Hall starts a little later. You can get that morning workout in and be totally fine for your, 8:15, 8:30, whatever time school starts for them. So coaches, I guess, have to work with what they have, what they can do. But yeah, I think that as far as workouts go, I've gotten a little more flexible as the years have gone on, with knowing that we're just kind of still laying the foundation for what's going to be coming in September, October. In a weird way, I almost look at it like extending the summer, but it's also not quite extending the summer. I mean, mileage wise, it might be, but then you are introducing workouts. And the last thing I'll touch on before I turn it back to you is that stress of school. I know in the last 10 years, I've had more kids that, and not a ton, but just a handful on the team, maybe each year, that feel exhausted once school starts. That kind of stress of going back to the school day and assignments on their plate, and they'll just feel really tired. And I have to remind them, hey, like, some people, for whatever reason, it takes more out of them when the school day starts getting back into the schedule. And so I think just knowing that for those kids, maybe they have to ease into it a little more than others. And then, usually it just takes a week or so and they adjust. They're teenagers, they adjust quickly. But that's something that I've noticed more of, kids just having to get into the rhythm of the school year, and having to adjust to training accordingly.
I like that extension of the summer. I don't know that I've looked at it that way, and I feel the same way now that I've been doing this a little bit longer, because I totally do it with the track season. Like, I look at January as 3 or 4 more weeks of building the winter, because the winter just isn't, the after cross country to start of track isn't the same time frame as a cross country off season. So and we're not racing, we're not racing until February, so you actually get a month ish to train with track. So I think that's a key difference with cross country, is that pressure of like, wow, we've got 3 weekends of August, and we're allowed 10 races in 12 weeks, give or take, right? Depending on when you're able to start. And that pressure of getting into races and wanting to make the most of every opportunity is sort of one of the big challenges with August. So yeah, I think getting athletes, as a coach, talking to your athletes about how those first few are just kind of rust busters. I think finding things in the month of August to focus on in races or in workouts, and not looking at like big picture necessarily. Like, every part of a race doesn't have to be perfect. Every rep of a workout doesn't have to be, grinding it out. I'm a big fan of just progressing through a workout at that time of year, and races. I mean, maybe, you're going to go preview Carrollton, yeah, I get it, early September, but nonetheless, your schedule is going to look like it maybe has in the past. Maybe it's going to look like previous seasons, and find something you want to work on. I think on each course, or something like that. I don't know if that makes sense, Coach. What do you think?
No, it does. Yeah, just, I mean, for some programs, I think, maybe you race, and I know some coaches are in favor of like doing a tempo effort during a race just to see the course. And then other coaches are more like, well, we're going to race every time we get on put our spikes on. but you're going to do it off of tired legs because we're not backing off the mileage, or we're going to do a hard workout, tough one on Thursday before Saturday. It just depends on, what approach the coaches want to take, and what they're wanting to get out of it. But yeah, I fall more in the camp of, sure, we're going to race, but we're not putting a ton of pressure or, emphasis on races in August. We're just trying to get started. And I'm also not, I've gotten more where those kids that had an extended track season, maybe they're not doing the first race. They're maybe it's just a JV race, and maybe holding out varsity and until later in the month or closer to September. It just depends on if a kid ended their track season at the state meet, or if they did some postseason races after state, and where they are with their mileage as to how we might adjust that schedule. And speaking of adjusting schedules, something else I feel like I've improved on is how to handle those kids that didn't run much, like maybe the bottom half of the JV. Those kids that come in and they have not run consistently over the summer, they've run here and there. I've maybe made some of them not do workouts the first couple of weeks of August, or maybe they progress to one. And that first race is, for us, is usually a 2-mile race. And that can be a glorified workout for them. I don't feel the need. What I'm saying is I don't feel the need to immediately put them into 2 workouts a week and the race. For some of them, they might not need to do 2 workouts a week until September, just to try to avoid the typical new runner shin splints and aches and pains that can pop up. I'd much rather do less than shoehorn them in to the full schedule.
Yeah, 100%. You touched on a few things there. Like, I think having a plan for how you're going to approach those early season races or workouts, kid to kid, and I think communicating that is huge. Not every athlete's on the same timeline. And then, I mean, you rush into the season, and specifically with somebody who maybe isn't quite as prepared, and all of a sudden, you lose them for 3 or 4 weeks because you rushed them back, right? No, great points. Now, changing gears a little bit, I think that August is awesome for sort of establishing your norms, putting your foot down about some things that maybe you would hope don't have to be mentioned, but getting out to practice on time, being prepared. Like, are they packing their bag? Are they, bringing water every day? What are your policies and plans when somebody's kind of not meeting those norms and those expectations? Hey, practice is going to be 2 hours. Like, if there's some habitual, I've got to be gone in 70 or 80 minutes, that's just not possible. Like, we're lucky that we're a sport that doesn't have to take, all day to get everything done that we have to get done. But, we can be in and out in 2 hours. And if you can't meet that expectation. So I think using August to tackle some of those things, because by September or October, they'll be really hard to fix.
Yeah, and what that makes me think of is when to decide is the cutoff date for joining the team.
Oh, yeah.
In the past, I would go as much as like at the end of the second week of school. We've definitely gotten to where we're at the end of the first week of school now, whether that's a full week or even a half week. Some years it's been a half week. This year it's a full week. Just because, I mean, we do want to catch those kids that maybe they moved in late, didn't know about cross country, but if they've been there the whole time, they've heard us do the spiel over the middle school. Obviously, it's going to be very hard for them to join in August and not have done anything over the summer and have a successful start, at least, to the season. They're going to be playing catch up. But an exception for sure for us is if somebody moved in, we'll take a move in, mid-season if they're moving into the district and are eligible and able to start right away. That's different. But a coach has to decide that, because the more you take on in August, the more new kids, that's more kids that you're having to manage their training. And, if have done nothing, that's more, in that last group that you're going to have to figure out how to handle. But yeah, establishing norms, establishing here's how we do things right away, going ahead and addressing when runners maybe as they're going to do test the limits, just to set the tone for the season. And that could be tough. Maybe it's just letting the younger kids observe what you do with the kids that are ready to run the full workouts. Because if you got a group that's not running a workout yet, what I do is I have them meet us after their mileage where we're doing the workout. So they're observing, they're watching, and maybe they see how they're going to be handled once they jump into the workouts, and what the norms are. Um, adjusting paces for the heat, etc. All those things that'll come up throughout the season. Hopefully the heat wanes, of course, when you get into September. Um, but yeah, establishing the norms and how you're going to handle things for sure right away in August is a great way to go.
Yeah, I think the sooner you get to a point where practice can more or less run itself, right? That's where you can actually start coaching. So all the little odds and ends that have to get kind of get tied up and caught up, and new runners and all that. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know that I have a whole lot else to add.
I think the only other thing that I think of going back to the time trial idea is some coaches like to do, a dedicated time trial. This is what we're doing for that practice day, or maybe if it's outside of practice, but like
Yeah.
a typical practice day, maybe it's on a Saturday morning. I know when I was at Decula my first 8 years, we would do it after school one day. So maybe for someone's program, that's a better fit than, hey, we're gonna, get together on a Saturday morning. Um, and obviously that changes things if you're doing it in cooler weather in the morning versus after school in August heat. But then, like I mentioned, other people use their first race almost as their glorified time trial. So I think a coach has to decide, when do I want it? How much am I going to use it in terms of informing the workouts? Or are the August workouts going to be more by feel because of the heat, the whole Mark Wetmore sensory data, like I'm going to go by how I'm feeling kind of approach, versus do coaches want to have that time trial to really inform, okay, here's your pace for this, even though it's warm in August, they want to have that hard data to look at. So different approaches, as always, there's different things that coaches can do.
Yeah, for us, I mean, we always started like the first race would be before kids were actually in the seats of the classroom. So we would usually not race on that opening weekend, and we would try to have our time trial on that Saturday. So I'm glad you kind of brought that up, and I'd have to be flexible, because a lot of families are taking that last bit of summer family vacation, and yeah, so we would offer a few time slots. Like we might do the first time slot at 7 a.m. for a time trial, then do an 8:30 a.m. and then do the last one maybe at 10 a.m. Try to thin things out a little bit. And then of course, I think the first couple of weeks, we would offer, on an easy run day. So like every Monday and Wednesday, anybody who needed to make up a time trial would be doing that while everybody else went for an easy run. And then we had time trial standards. Again, I think emphasizing how August is a tough month. Anybody who was a late join or couldn't hit a certain time trial standard, which I mean, we're talking about like 22 minutes, for 2 miles, or I think, for the girls, and then I think the boys were 17 minutes or something. So anybody who couldn't achieve that, like, look, like we don't want you out there suffering for 30 plus minutes on a cross country course in this heat, this time of year. Like you need a little more time. And yeah, so something that we did, we would have them run time trials until they met that standard, or until they got through their first 4 or 5 weeks of the season, and then they were free to race. So good point. I didn't even been a minute since I thought about that.
Yeah, we've done different standards. We've done where you have to run the whole time. We've done, depending on the year and the amount of runners we have and how hard they've been working, we've had it where, you know, it's okay if they don't quite make the full time trial without walking, but they're not going to be put in a race until they're running, the whole time. It just depends on the year, and but we do have a standard that they're going for as motivation into that time trial.
Awesome.
All
Well, I
right.
guess in closing remarks, hey, you've got time in August. I know we're all excited to have the team together, excited to be out and racing. But we're a long way from November. We're a long way from better temperatures. So use August to establish your norms. What does practice look like? What can kids expect? Be flexible, in terms of the workload that you're maybe expecting. Strategize for races. It doesn't have to be a go for it from the gun from start to finish. I think, thinking about that stuff is really important. Yeah.
I agree 100%. Thank you. Thank you for this, Coach Mayer. And we'll see everybody next time.
All right.